Nurse dances with wheelchair-bound girl, unknowingly watched by her millionaire father. The halls of City Hope Medical Center in New York City had never seemed as quiet as on that Thursday afternoon. Emma Thompson, a nurse in the pediatric wing, watched with concern as Olivia Parker stared blankly ahead, having completed her 3rd month of hospitalization with no signs of clinical or emotional improvement. That's when Emma had an unexpected idea. She approached the girl's wheelchair and, after turning on the small radio she carried in her lab coat pocket, began dancing around her, humming a cheerful tune. What the devoted nurse didn't know was that through the slightly ajar door, Richard Blackwell, the girl's father, and one of the country's most influential businessmen, was watching the scene, clutching a bouquet of lilies he nearly dropped upon seeing his daughter smile for the first time in years. "Come on, Liv, just a little. Move those arms for me," Emma encouraged, carefully spinning the wheelchair as she gracefully moved around the hospital room. "I don't know how to dance, Aunt Emma," Olivia replied timidly, but a new sparkle appeared in her eyes. "Everyone can dance. Just let your body move however it wants." The nurse smiled, taking the girl's hands and swaying them to the rhythm. "You don't need legs to feel the music, you know." Behind the door, Richard Blackwell held his breath. 5 years had passed since he'd left his daughter in her maternal grandmother's care after the tragic accident that took his wife and left Olivia paralyzed from the waist down. Guilt, grief, and his inability to cope had driven him to bury himself in work, building a financial empire while his only daughter withered emotionally. "Look, I think we're making a little breakthrough here," Emma said, noticing Olivia's fingers twitching slightly as she tried to follow the rhythm. "Aunt Emma, the music tickles inside," the girl murmured with a hesitant smile that lit up her pale face. Richard swallowed hard, feeling the weight of every day he'd been absent. He'd received a call from the attending physician about his daughter's depression and refusal to cooperate with treatment. After years of avoiding reality, he'd finally decided to visit, but now, witnessing this moment, he couldn't bring himself to interrupt the first genuine happiness he'd seen in his child in years. The next day, Emma arrived at the hospital to the surprising news that a floral arrangement had been delivered to Olivia with no sender's name. The girl seemed slightly livelier, studying the colorful blooms with curiosity. When the nurse entered the room, Olivia made an unexpected request. "Aunt Emma, can we dance again today?" Emma's face lit up instantly, while in the hallway Dr. Margaret Wilson, the hospital director, watched with a frown. Known for her strict adherence to protocol, the doctor had warned Emma multiple times about her unconventional methods. "Nurse Thompson, could you join me in my office, please?" the director asked firmly, interrupting the moment between Emma and Olivia. In the sleek offices of Blackwell Enterprises in New York City's financial district, Richard swiveled in his Italian leather chair, gazing at the city skyline while his mind lingered in the hospital room where he'd seen his daughter smile. His assistant, Brian, entered with a file of documents. "Mr. Blackwell, the board is waiting for the meeting about the pharmacy chain acquisition," Brian informed him. "Reschedule it. I have personal matters to attend to," Richard replied, abruptly standing up, "and gather information on City Hope Medical Center. I want to know everything. Financial situation, administration, needs. Any specific interest in investment, sir?" asked the assistant. "For now, keep this confidential. And prepare. An anonymous donation for the pediatric wing, $20,000 to start." Meanwhile, in Dr. Margaret's office, Emma was facing a stern reprimand. "I understand your enthusiasm, nurse, but I can't allow improvised methods. We have established physical therapy protocols," the director argued firmly. "With all due respect, Dr. Margaret, the protocols weren't working." Olivia refused. To participate in the sessions, she was completely apathetic. Emma defended herself, maintaining her composure. "And now you're a physical therapy expert?" the doctor mocked. "No, but I'm an expert in children. I've worked with them for 6 years, and I know when they need joy more than another mechanical exercise," Emma replied, feeling her cheeks burn with indignation. The director removed her glasses with a sigh. "Emma, your results with the children are undeniable, but I need you to understand the risks. What if the girl had fallen during that improvised dance? What if there had been complications? Who would be held responsible? I would take full responsibility, Emma stated, without hesitation. That's exactly the kind of impulsiveness that worries me. So I'll allow you to continue with the patient, but I want daily reports and a physical therapist present during these alternative sessions. Back in Olivia's room, Emma found the girl drawing something in a notebook, more animated than she'd been in months. What are you drawing? Emma asked, adjusting the girl's pillow. The two of us dancing, Olivia replied, showing a colorful drawing where she wasn't in a wheelchair but standing, holding hands with the nurse. Emma felt a tightness in her chest. Olivia's drawings had always been dark, with isolated figures. This was the first one that showed interaction, movement, life. Liv, it's beautiful. Can I ask you something? Why did you draw yourself standing? The girl thought for a moment. Because when we danced, I felt my legs, Aunt Emma. Just a little. But I felt them. Emma's eyes widened. According to the medical records, the diagnosis indicated permanent paraplegia after partial spinal trauma. However, there were rare cases of partial recovery, especially in young patients. Olivia, this is very important. I'll call Dr. Michael so we can talk about this, okay? The girl nodded but held Emma's hand before she could leave. Aunt Emma, do you think my dad will ever come back to see me? The question caught Emma off guard. In all the months caring for Olivia, the girl had rarely mentioned her absent father. I don't know, sweetheart, but know that there are many people here at the hospital who care about you. I care very much. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. In the hospital conference room, Dr. Michael Reynolds, the neurologist overseeing Olivia's case, listened to Emma's report with skepticism. Nurse Thompson, I understand your enthusiasm, but we must be realistic. The patient's spinal injury was classified as permanent in 3 separate evaluations. Doctor, with all due respect, Olivia reported sensations in her legs during the activity. We can't ignore that, Emma insisted, flipping through the girl's chart. Besides, there are no records of attempts with alternative approaches, like music therapy or dance therapy. Dr. Michael adjusted his glasses impatiently. That's because they aren't therapies with sufficient scientific evidence for cases like hers. But there's no evidence against them either. And if it's working, Doctor, Margaret, present at the meeting, interrupted. Let's do this. I'll authorize a formal evaluation with the physical therapist Nathan and the presence of the multidisciplinary team. If there's any sign of sensitivity, we'll reconsider the therapeutic plan. Emma agreed to the arrangement, though she felt the doctors were just trying to placate her. As she left the room, she encountered Mrs. Margaret, Olivia's grandmother and legal guardian, in the hallway. How is she today? Asked the grey-haired woman with tired eyes. Emma smiled gently. Better than in recent months, Mrs. Margaret. In fact, we've had a small breakthrough I'd like to share with you. As they spoke, they didn't notice the presence of a well-dressed man watching from a distance. Richard Blackwell was back, keeping his distance to avoid recognition. The next morning, the hospital received a visit from a potential benefactor who wanted to tour the pediatric wing. Richard Blackwell, introducing himself only as a representative of a business group interested in social responsibility, was guided by the financial administrator, Susan Miller. As you can see, Mr. Ferguson, our hospital primarily serves the underprivileged population of the East Side. We do our best with limited resources, explained Susan, using the false name Richard had provided. I'm particularly interested in the pediatric wing, Richard remarked, controlling his eagerness to pass by Olivia's room. I've heard you have innovative treatment methods here. Well, we follow all standard protocols, but we do have some rather creative professionals, Susan replied with a restrained smile, clearly referring to Emma without mentioning their recent disagreements. As they walked down the hallway, Richard heard soft music coming from one of the rooms. His heart raced as he recognized the lively voice of the nurse he'd seen days earlier. What's happening in that room? He asked, feigning casual curiosity. Oh, that's one of our long-term patients. The nurse is conducting an alternative activity approved by the medical team, Susan answered, visibly uncomfortable. May I observe? I'm interested in innovative approaches, Richard insisted. Reluctantly, Susan lightly knocked and opened the door, revealing Emma, Olivia, and the physical therapist Nathan. The music played softly as Emma moved Olivia's arms to the rhythm, while Nathan discreetly assessed the girl's reactions. "Sorry for the interruption," Susan said. "This is Mr. Ferguson, a representative from a group that may donate to the hospital." Emma and Nathan nodded politely, while Olivia stared intently at Richard. Something in the girl's gaze made him look away, afraid of being recognized. "Please, Carrie. I don't want to interfere," Richard said, positioning himself quietly in the corner of the room. Emma turned her attention back to Olivia. "Shall we continue? Remember what we talked about imagining the music as colors?" "Yes, this song is yellow and orange," Olivia replied enthusiastically. Nathan, watching closely, noticed a subtle movement in the girl's right foot when the music reached its chorus. He made a discreet note on his clipboard, exchanging a meaningful glance with Emma. Richard observed the scene, fighting back emotion. The last time he'd seen Olivia smiling like that was before the accident, when they were still a complete family. The doctors had been clear about the permanence of her condition, and facing the reality of a daughter with permanent disabilities while grieving his wife had been too much for him. The guilt over his cowardice consumed him daily. After the session, when Olivia was taken for routine tests, Richard approached Emma in the hallway. "Your work with the girl is impressive," he commented, trying to keep the conversation professional. "Thank you, but the credit is hers. Olivia is special," replied Emma, adjusting the badge on her lab coat. "What exactly is her condition?" asked Richard, feigning ignorance. Emma hesitated, considering professional ethics. "I'm sorry, I can't discuss specific patient cases. Hospital policy." "Of course I understand. It just seems your method is bringing results." "We're hopeful, but it's a slow process. The most important thing now is that she's re-engaged with treatment." Richard nodded, fighting the urge to reveal his identity. "And her family? Are they involved in her care?" Emma's expression hardened slightly. "Her maternal grandmother is very present. The father—" She paused, weighing her words. "Has been absent for 5 years." The disapproval in her tone was evident, making Richard look away. "Sometimes people don't know how to handle difficult situations," he murmured, more to himself than to Emma. "With all due respect, sir, when it comes to a child, there's no option to simply not handle it," Emma replied firmly, before walking away to attend to another patient. That night, Richard couldn't sleep. The nurse's words echoed in his mind alongside Olivia's smile and the memory of the accident that had destroyed his family. The next morning, he called his lawyer. "Andrew, I need you to prepare the paperwork for a substantial donation. $5 million to City Hope Medical Center, focused on restructuring the pediatric wing and establishing a rehabilitation center." "Richard, that's surprising. Any specific reason for this amount and this hospital?" "Just make it happen, with one condition: complete anonymity. I don't want my name or the company associated with the donation." Meanwhile, at the hospital, Emma faced a complicated situation. The video Nathan had recorded during the therapeutic dance session, intended only for medical documentation, had been shared among some staff members and had leaked into an employee WhatsApp group. "This is completely unacceptable," Dr. Margaret exclaimed in an emergency meeting. "We have strict rules about patient privacy. How did this video end up in unauthorized hands?" Nathan, visibly distressed, took responsibility. "Doctor, I sent it to Dr. Michael as evidence of the movements we observed. I don't know how it leaked after that. Regardless of how it happened, this represents a serious ethical violation," the director continued, glaring at Emma. "Especially since the patient is a minor." "Excuse me," interrupted Susan, the financial administrator, entering the room. "We have a situation. The video isn't just circulating internally, it was just posted on social media and is gaining views rapidly." A heavy silence fell over the room. Emma felt her blood run cold, thinking of the legal implications and, most of all, the emotional impact on Olivia. "Who posted it?" Dr. Margaret asked, her voice controlled but visibly furious. "We don't know. The account was created today with no clear identification. The title is something like The power of dance and compassion when traditional medicine fails. In less than 2 hours, it already has over 50,000 views. Emma covered her face with her hands, devastated. All of Olivia's progress could unravel because of this unwanted exposure. "I need to speak with Mrs. Margaret immediately," Emma said, standing. "She should hear this from us before she finds out another way." "You're not going anywhere, Nurse Thompson," Dr. Margaret declared. "You're suspended pending the internal investigation." "But Olivia needs—" "Precisely because you're thinking of the patient, you're being removed. Your emotional involvement is clearly compromising your professional judgment." Emma felt as if she'd been punched in the gut. In 6 years as a nurse, she'd never faced disciplinary action. "I wasn't the one who shared the video," she declared, her voice trembling. "Maybe not, but your unconventional methods and insistence on documenting them created this situation. Please turn in your badge at the front desk before leaving." In Richard Blackwell's office, Brian rushed in with a tablet in hand. "Mr. Blackwell, I think you need to see this." On the screen, the video of Olivia dancing with Emma was going viral on social media. The comments overflowed with emotion, support and demands for the hospital to invest more in alternative therapies. Richard watched the video with an unreadable expression. On one hand, he was furious about the unauthorized exposure of his daughter. On the other, the positive response might force the hospital to continue the treatment that was working. "Find out who posted this," he ordered Brian. "We're already investigating, but the account is anonymous and was created through a VPN. I suspect someone with technical knowledge." Richard grabbed the phone, determined. "Andrew, change of plans. The donation will be announced tomorrow, under my name, and prepare the paperwork for a lawsuit over unauthorized use of a minor's image." At the hospital, Olivia stared at the tablet screen one of the nursing techs had carelessly left in her room. Silent tears streamed down her face as she watched herself dancing with Emma, now seen by hundreds of thousands. Even more painful were the comments saying her dedicated nurse had been unfairly suspended for helping her. When Mrs. Margaret arrived for her visit, she found her granddaughter distraught. "Grandma, we have to help Aunt Emma. She's in trouble because of me." "Easy, sweetheart. I'm already speaking with the hospital administration," the older woman replied, stroking Olivia's hair. "She's the only one who believed I could get better. Without her, I'll just be stuck in bed all day again." Mrs. Margaret sighed deeply. "Olivia, there's something I need to tell you. Your father reached out to me yesterday." The girl's eyes widened. "Dad? He remembers I exist." The pain in her voice made Margaret fight back tears. "He never forgot you, my dear. He just didn't know how to handle everything that happened. But now he wants to come see you." "I don't want to see him," Olivia exclaimed, startling her grandmother with her vehemence. "He abandoned me when I needed him most." "Olivia, if he shows up, I'll pretend I'm asleep. The only person I want to see is Aunt Emma." Meanwhile, Emma arrived at her small apartment, devastated. In her 6 years of pediatric nursing, she'd formed deep bonds with many patients, but Olivia held a special place in her heart. Perhaps because the girl reminded her of her younger brother Matthew, who'd grown up with a degenerative neurological condition and passed away at 16 just as Emma was beginning her nursing studies. Her phone wouldn't stop ringing. Colleagues, friends, even local journalists wanted comments about the viral video. Emma turned it off, unable to handle more stress. She lay on the couch, flipping through the photo album where she kept memories of Matthew, feeling like a failure for not protecting Olivia from unwanted exposure. The doorbell snapped her out of her thoughts. When she opened the door, she found Nathan, the physical therapist, holding a folder with a troubled expression. "We need to talk," he said, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "The hospital is in chaos. The board is hunting for whoever leaked the video. Reporters won't stop calling. And some millionaire businessman is threatening to sue everyone." "Businessman? What businessman?" Emma asked, confused. "Richard Blackwell. Apparently he's Olivia's father." Emma sat down, stunned by the information. "The absent father is one of the richest men in the country, and he shows up now after 5 years. Not only showed up, but demanded a meeting with the full board for tomorrow. Rumor has it he's making $1 million donation, but with conditions." What conditions? Nathan hesitated, adjusting his glasses nervously. No one knows for sure, but I came here because I have something to show you. He opened his briefcase, revealing Olivia's recent test results. The electrostimulation test showed responses in nerves previously considered irreparable. It's minimal, but it's there. Your improvised dance therapy may have activated neural pathways that were dormant. Emma's heart raced at the news. This confirms what Olivia said she felt. Exactly. And that's why no matter what happens tomorrow, you need to be at that meeting. Officially, you're still suspended, but I'm sure if we call Dr. Teresa from the nursing board... No, Emma interrupted. I don't want to involve the board yet. I want to handle this within the hospital for Olivia's sake. That night in his luxurious penthouse, Richard Blackwell mentally prepared for the confrontation ahead. Not only would he face the hospital board, but finally his daughter and mother-in-law. The weight of 5 years' absence pressed heavily on his shoulders. His phone rang, displaying Susan's name, the hospital's financial administrator. Mr. Blackwell, sorry to call so late, but I thought you'd want to know. We traced the source of the leaked video. And? It was posted from an IP we tracked back to your corporate office, sir. Richard froze, disbelieving. That's impossible. There must be a mistake. The data is clear. The upload came from a computer registered to Blackwell Enterprises network at 3:47 p.m. yesterday. A terrible suspicion formed in Richard's mind. Thank you for the information, Susan. I'll handle it. Immediately, he called Brian. I need you to check the corporate network access logs. Find out who was using the conference room computer yesterday afternoon. Less than 20 minutes later, Brian called back, his voice hesitant. Sir, the logs show it was your personal login. Only you and I have access to those credentials, and I was in an off-site meeting at the time. Richard felt his blood boil. I'm being sabotaged, Brian. Someone used my credentials. Sir, there's more. The security camera shows you at the computer at that exact moment, watching what appears to be the same video that went viral. Then Richard remembered. He had watched the video Brian showed him, leaving it open on the computer while he stepped out for an urgent call. He had no idea how the video had reached his assistant, or that it had been downloaded instead of just streamed. Some mistake, some accidental click in his absence, and the video had been shared under his profile. Brian, you have no idea the mess you've just created, Richard said, hanging up and feeling the weight of the irony. He, who had planned to sue the hospital for the leak, was the one who had exposed his own daughter. The next morning, the auditorium at City Hope Medical Center was tense. On one side, the full board, including Dr. Margaret and Dr. Michael. On the other, Richard Blackwell with his lawyers. Emma had been granted special permission to attend, but remained discreetly at the back of the room. Nathan and other members of Olivia's care team were also present. Before we begin formally, I'd like to clarify an important point, Richard started, surprising everyone. The leak of my daughter's video occurred due to an unfortunate technical error in my own office, for which I take full responsibility. A murmur spread through the room. Dr. Margaret furrowed her brow, confused by the sudden turn. Mr. Blackwell, does this mean you're withdrawing the lawsuit threats against the hospital? Yes, and more than that. I'm here to propose a partnership. As everyone knows, I am the father of Olivia Parker, a patient at this hospital for the past 3 months. What few know is that I've also been an absent father for 5 years, ever since the accident that took my daughter's ability to walk and my wife's life. The unexpected honesty left the room in absolute silence. Recently, I witnessed something that the best specialists I've hired over the years couldn't achieve. A genuine smile from my daughter, not brought on by expensive equipment or imported medications, but by a nurse who danced with her. Richard's eyes met Emma's at the back of the room. Nurse Emma Thompson, your dedication goes beyond protocols because it's rooted in something you can't learn from books: authentic compassion. That's why I'm announcing an official donation of $20 million for the construction of the Emma Thompson Children's Rehabilitation Center, attached to this hospital. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing, the announcement sparked immediate reactions. Dr. Margaret choked on her water. Susan dropped her clipboard, and Emma felt the floor vanish beneath her feet. "Mr. Blackwell, your generosity is extraordinary, but—" Dr. Margaret began. "I'm not finished," Richard interrupted. "The donation comes with 3 non-negotiable conditions. First, Nurse Emma will be reinstated immediately, with a formal apology for her unjust suspension. Second, the center will be led by a multidisciplinary team that must include dance therapy and other alternative therapies in the treatment of children with physical disabilities. Third, Mrs. Emma Thompson will have a decisive role in developing the therapeutic programs." Emma stood up, shaken. "Mr. Blackwell, I appreciate your trust, but I can't accept something like this. I'm not a rehabilitation specialist. I'm just a nurse who did what specialists couldn't," Richard finished. "I'm not suggesting you'll do it alone. We'd work with the best professionals, but under your human-centered guidance. Unless, of course, you'd prefer the job at St. Luke's Hospital that I know you were offered yesterday." Emma blinked in surprise. How did he know about the private hospital's offer? "The choice is yours, Nurse Thompson, but before you decide, there's someone who'd like to join this conversation." The auditorium doors opened, and Mrs. Margaret entered, pushing Liv's wheelchair. The girl looked solemnly at those present until her eyes met Emma's. Then a small smile lit up her face. "Aunt Emma, they told me you won't be my nurse anymore," Liv said, her voice trembling. Emma approached, kneeling to meet the girl's eye level. "We're working that out, sweetheart. Don't worry." Liv then looked at Richard, her father, with an indescribable expression. "He said he's going to build a place where other kids like me can dance like you taught me. Is it true?" "It looks that way," Emma replied softly. "Then you can't leave," Liv declared with the simplicity and wisdom only children possess. "Other kids need to dance too." The room fell silent for a moment, until Dr. Michael cleared his throat, adjusting his glasses. "If I may, I'd like to present something relevant to this discussion." He turned on the projector, displaying images of Olivia's latest tests. These are the comparative results of the sensitivity tests. On the left, from when Olivia first arrived at the hospital. On the right, from yesterday. The green areas indicate neural response. The difference was subtle but undeniable. Small green patches appeared in the second test, where there had only been red, indicating no response before. In layman's terms, Olivia is regaining some sensation in her legs, the doctor continued. "I can't say definitively that this is due to the dance sessions, but the temporal correlation is undeniable." "What does this mean in practical terms?" asked Richard, his voice controlled but his eyes shining with hope. Dr. Michael looked directly at Olivia before answering. "It means the prognosis of permanent paraplegia needs to be reconsidered. I don't want to raise false hopes, but there's a possibility of partial mobility recovery with intensified proper treatment." Olivia squeezed Emma's hand tightly. "See, Auntie, I told you I felt my legs." Emma smiled, fighting back tears. "Oh, yes, Liv, you did." Dr. Margaret stood up, adjusting her lab coat meticulously. "In light of this new information and circumstances, the hospital will naturally reconsider Nurse Thompson's suspension." She paused, visibly uncomfortable. "I apologize for the hasty decision and acknowledge the valuable contribution of her alternative methods." The rest of the meeting focused on the technical and bureaucratic aspects of the donation and the future rehabilitation center. At the end, when most had left, Richard approached Emma, who was chatting animatedly with Olivia about the colors the girl envisioned for the new center. "Nurse Thompson, could I have a few minutes in private?" Richard asked. Emma hesitated, glancing at Olivia, who immediately tensed. "Don't worry, Liv. I'll be right back to continue our color." "Planning okay," Emma said with a reassuring smile. Reluctantly, Olivia agreed, and Emma followed Richard to a small, empty meeting room. "I want to personally thank you for what you've done for my daughter," he began, his voice steady, "and also apologize for being the cause of the video leak, even if unintentionally. Mr. Blackwell, there's no need to thank me. I care for Olivia because it's my job and because I genuinely care about her. And that's exactly what I'd like to discuss." Richard took a deep breath. "I've noticed your special bond with Olivia, and I imagine there's a personal reason for such extraordinary dedication." Emma crossed her arms, defensive. What are you implying? Nothing negative, quite the opposite. I just want to understand better to ensure this partnership works long-term. I've looked into you, Emma. I know you lost your brother to a neurological condition 8 years ago. Emma paled. Her family history was something she kept separate from her professional life. With all due respect, Mr. Blackwell, my personal history isn't up for discussion. I understand and respect your privacy. I just want to be sure your dedication to Olivia isn't just a way to compensate for what you couldn't do for your brother. Emma felt a surge of indignation. Unlike you, who abandoned your daughter when she needed you most, I never left my brother. I was by his side until his last breath. Her voice trembled, but she kept her composure. If my personal experience makes me more empathetic and dedicated, I consider that a strength, not a weakness. And if you're worried, I might abandon. Olivia, like you did, rest assured. It's not in my nature to give up on people I love. Richard took a step back, visibly struck by her direct words. You have every right to criticize me, and I accept that. I'm not questioning your integrity, just trying to understand the dynamics to protect my daughter. Protect? Emma laughed without humor. Where was this concern for the past 5 years? A heavy silence fell between them. I was hiding behind work and money, Richard admitted finally, unable to face the fact that my only daughter had lost her mother and the use of her legs on the same day, in an accident I could have prevented if I'd listened to my wife when she insisted the driver was too tired to be behind the wheel. The revelation caught Emma by surprise. There had been no mention of this detail in Olivia's medical records. You blame yourself for the accident. Every single day since it happened. Richard ran a hand over his tired face. Seeing Liv in that wheelchair was a constant reminder of my failure as a father and a husband. So I did what cowards do. I ran. Emma studied the man before her with new eyes. Behind the impeccable suit and powerful executive demeanor was a father shattered by guilt. Mr. Blackwell, what happened was tragic, but blaming yourself doesn't help Liv. She needs a present father, not a perfect one. That's what I'm trying to be now, maybe too late. It's never too late to do the right thing, Emma said gently, but you need to understand that rebuilding Liv's trust will take time. She feels abandoned, betrayed. I know. And that's why... Richard hesitated. I'd like to ask for your help. Liv trusts you. Could you help me reconnect with my daughter? Emma considered for a moment. Her protective instinct toward Liv made her want to keep Richard at arm's length, but she knew the girl needed to resolve this relationship for her own emotional well-being. I can try, Mr. Blackwell, but on one condition. What? That you're absolutely honest with her. No empty promises or expensive gifts to make up for your absence. Liv needs truth and consistency. Richard extended his hand. You have my word. In the weeks that followed, City Hope Medical Center became a construction site. The new rehabilitation center was progressing rapidly, while the story of Liv, her businessman father, and the dedicated nurse made national headlines. Journalists persistently sought interviews, especially after the publication of a preliminary medical article on the benefits of dance therapy for spinal cord trauma patients. Emma had not only returned to her normal duties, but was now coordinating a small pilot group of children with various physical conditions, applying her improvised methodology with formal support from physical and music therapists. Liv was, naturally, the program's star. Aunt Emma, look, the girl exclaimed during a session, showing how she could now slightly move her right foot to the music's rhythm. It was a nearly imperceptible movement to casual observers, but it represented tremendous progress. I see it, Liv, that's wonderful, Emma replied, exchanging an emotional glance with Nathan, who was officially documenting the progress. Richard, watching discreetly from the doorway, felt his heart clench. His relationship with Liv remained tense and formal. Despite visiting, daily and actively participating in her treatment decisions, the girl maintained an emotional distance that tore at him. Mr. Blackwell, may we talk? Dr. Michael called, approaching him in the hallway. The two walked to the doctor's temporary office. Liv's latest tests confirm an improving trend in neural function, the neurologist explained, showing the scans on his computer. I don't want to create unrealistic expectations, but there's a possibility that with intensified treatment, she might regain partial control of her lower limbs in the future. What does partial control mean in practical terms? Asked Richard, trying to keep the hope out of his voice. In the best-case scenario, maybe standing with support, taking a few steps with a walker. In the more conservative scenario, better wheelchair control and more independence in daily activities. Richard nodded, taking it in. What do we need to do to maximize the chances of the best-case scenario? Keep doing exactly what we're doing, but more intensively. Nurse Emma's method, combined with conventional physical therapy and electrical stimulation, is producing surprising results. And if I may add, the emotional factor seems crucial too. Olivia is more motivated, engaged, less depressed, Richard finished thoughtfully. Exactly. Mental health directly affects physical recovery. The emotional support she's getting from the team, especially from Nurse Emma, and now from your constant presence creates an environment conducive to healing. Richard thanked the doctor and stepped back into the hallway, where he found Mrs. Margaret waiting to speak with him. "How are you, Margaret?" he greeted formally. His relationship with his mother-in-law remained polite but distant. "Better now that I see my granddaughter smiling again," the older woman replied. "We need to talk about her birthday." "Birthday? 10 years old next week. Since the accident, she's refused to celebrate, but this year she mentioned wanting to do something special. At the new center with the other kids in the program, Richard felt a mix of joy and sadness. His daughter was about to turn 10 and he'd missed 5 birthdays. "Of course, we'll arrange something memorable. What would she like?" "That's the thing. She doesn't want you to plan it alone. She wants to help organize it with Emma." Margaret paused meaningfully. "She specifically asked for the two of you to work on it together." Richard immediately understood his daughter's strategy. Olivia was creating a situation where he and Emma would have to collaborate directly. "I see, I'll talk to Emma today." When he finally found the nurse, she was in the small makeshift room they used for planning the new center, surrounded by architectural blueprints and equipment catalogs. "Emma, do you have a moment?" She looked up from the papers, tired but satisfied. "Mr. Blackwell, come in. I was just reviewing your suggestions for the multi-sensory room. Please, after everything, call me Richard." Emma smiled faintly, nodding. "Richard, then. What can I do for you?" "I came to talk about Olivia's birthday. Margaret told me she wants us to organize it together." "Oh, yes. She mentioned it to me yesterday. Very excited." Emma tucked the papers into a folder. "Specifically, she wants to do a dance performance with the other kids in the program, a kind of public debut for the method." Richard absorbed this, impressed by his daughter's courage. "A public performance? She really wants that?" Surprisingly, yes. She said she wants to show other kids like her that dancing is possible, in many ways. Emma smiled proudly. "Your daughter is finding a purpose, Richard." He felt his eyes sting but quickly composed himself. "Inspired by you, no doubt. By both of us, I think." Emma closed the last file on her computer. "She admires your business drive more than she lets on. The other day she asked how you managed to build that huge building downtown. The revelation caught Richard off guard. She talks about me? Often. Mostly questions, trying to understand who this father is who came back after so long." Emma stood, grabbing her bag. "You're making progress with her, you know, more than you realize. It doesn't feel like it. She barely looks me in the eye. Because she's still protecting herself. She's afraid to get close and be abandoned again." Emma paused, considering whether to share something. "Yesterday after you left, she asked me if I thought you were really back or if you'd leave once you got tired of pushing a wheelchair." The words hit Richard like a punch. "What did you say? That I can't speak for you, but that people make mistakes and deserve second chances when they genuinely try to make things right." Emma smiled gently. "And that you seem to be trying very hard." That evening, as he reviewed the final details of the rehabilitation center project in his home office, Richard found a small notebook among the architectural blueprints. It was a diary with a colorful cover and the name Emma Thompson on the first page. It had been placed there by mistake. Respecting the nurse's privacy, he tried to close it, but one phrase caught his eye. Today, Matthew would have turned 24. Against his better judgment, he read the paragraph. Today, Matthew would have turned 24. Maybe he would have graduated, maybe he'd be dating, maybe just smiling as I told him about my new patient, Olivia, who reminds me so much of him. The same stubborn determination, the same smile that lights up the room. Unlike him, though, she has a real chance to get better, and I'll do everything in my power to make sure she gets that chance, even if it means standing up to hospital directors and absent millionaire fathers. The entry was from 2 months ago, when Olivia had just arrived at the hospital and Richard hadn't reappeared yet. He closed the diary quickly, feeling intrusive and guilty. That same night, he discreetly returned the notebook to Emma's desk with a simple note. Found it mixed in with the project documents. My apologies if I inadvertently saw something personal. R.B. On the morning of Olivia's birthday, the hospital was buzzing. Though the new rehabilitation center wasn't officially open yet, the main area had been temporarily set up for the special event. Colorful balloons decorated the space, and a small makeshift stage had been arranged. Olivia, in her wheelchair, adorned with colorful ribbons, looked both nervous and excited as Emma adjusted the blue dress specially chosen for the occasion. "What if I can't do it, Aunt Emma?" the girl murmured, watching the other 4 children in the pilot program who would also be participating in the performance, each with their own physical limitations. "Do what, Liv?" Emma asked gently. "Do it right. Show everyone. I can dance." Emma knelt to meet the girl at eye level. "Olivia Parker, listen carefully. Dancing isn't about perfect steps or grand movements. It's about feeling the music and expressing what's in your heart, in your own unique way, and that's something you already do beautifully." The girl nodded, still unsure. Then her eyes caught something over Emma's shoulder, and her expression shifted slightly. "Dad's here." Emma turned and saw Richard entering the hall, carrying a large gift wrapped in colorful paper. He looked just as nervous as his daughter. "Happy birthday, Olivia," he said, approaching cautiously. "I brought you something." The girl eyed the package with restrained curiosity. "What is it?" "Open it and see," Richard replied, placing the gift in her lap. With careful fingers, Olivia unwrapped it, revealing a beautifully carved wooden box. When she opened it, a soft melody began to play, and inside was a ballerina spinning gracefully. "It's a music box," Richard explained. "But not just any music box. I had it made especially for you." Looking closer, Olivia noticed the ballerina wasn't in the traditional pose on her toes. Instead, she moved on a meticulously detailed golden chair, her arms extended in a fluid motion. "She dances while sitting," murmured Olivia, gently, touching the figurine. "Like the bravest dancer I know," Richard added, his voice thick with emotion. Olivia's eyes welled up with tears, and for the first time since her father's return, she reached out her arms toward him, asking for a hug. Richard, caught off guard, awkwardly leaned in, wrapping his daughter in a hesitant embrace that soon turned into a tight, emotional squeeze. Emma discreetly stepped back to give them privacy, but Olivia called out, "Aunt Emma, come here, you're part of this too." The small family moment expanded to include the nurse, creating a scene that, unbeknownst to them, would be captured by a local newspaper photographer and become the symbol of the future Children's Rehabilitation Center. The performance was a modest but thrilling success. The 5 children, each with their own unique limitations and abilities, presented a simple yet expressive choreography adapted by Emma and Nathan. Olivia, at the center of the group, moved her arms and torso with surprising grace, and at one point, to the audience's astonishment, managed to shift her feet slightly to the rhythm of the music. By the end, the applause was deafening. Parents, hospital staff, press representatives, and curious onlookers who had heard about the event filled the space. Dr. Margaret, once so critical, now clapped enthusiastically alongside other doctors who had initially doubted the alternative approach. During the small celebration that followed with cake and soda, Richard found a moment to speak with Emma privately. "I can never thank you enough for what you've done for my daughter," he said, watching Olivia laugh with the other children. "I only did my job," Emma replied with her typical modesty. "We both know that's not true." Richard paused, carefully choosing his words. "I read about your brother, Matthew." Emma stiffened instantly. "In my diary. Just one entry, by accident. I already apologized for that." She nodded, accepting the explanation. "He would have loved seeing this today," she finally said with a sad smile. "Matthew always believed art heals as much as medicine, maybe even more." Seems he was right. A comfortable silence settled between them as they watched the joy around them. "Emma, I'd like to make you an offer." "Another one?" "Yes. The center will be operational in less than a month. I'd like you to officially take over as the therapeutic program coordinator, with full autonomy and a team of your choosing." Emma blinked, surprised by the offer. "I don't have the administrative qualifications for that. I'm a nurse, not a manager." "That's exactly why you're the right person. I don't want an administrator. I want someone passionate about what we do here. The bureaucratic side can be handled by hiring qualified assistants." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. Emma considered the proposal, her eyes wandering across the room until they landed on Olivia, who was now proudly showing her music box to her friends. "Would I have free rein to develop the program as I see fit?" she finally asked. "Complete freedom. My only condition is that Olivia remains your priority." Emma smiled. "You didn't even need to ask." Richard extended his hand formally, and Emma shook it firmly. "Welcome officially to the Blackwell family, Emma." Her expression shifted subtly, one eyebrow raised in question. "The family?" Richard flushed slightly, realizing the ambiguity of his words. "I meant to the inner circle of trust, professionally speaking. Blackwell Enterprises has—" "I understand," replied Emma with a small smile, saving him from embarrassment. "Thank you for your trust." In the following weeks, as the official opening date of the center approached, the pace of work intensified. Emma, juggling her duties at the hospital and preparations for the new project, barely had time to breathe. Her routine consisted of long hours that often stretched late into the night. On one such evening, as she finalized the records of the first 50 children who would be treated at the center, Emma was surprised by Richard's arrival, carrying a bag of Chinese food and a look of concern. "It's almost 11, and Susan told me you hadn't eaten yet," he explained, setting the containers on the table. "I can't have my program director fainting from hunger." Emma laughed, suddenly realizing just how hungry she was. "I admit, I lost track of time. Thank you." They shared the impromptu meal while going over the final details for the opening. What began as a work meeting gradually turned into a personal conversation as fatigue lowered their professional barriers. "How's Olivia?" Emma asked, missing the girl who now spent more time at home with her father and grandmother. "Surprisingly well. She started online classes and is excited about possibly returning to in-person school next semester." "That's wonderful. And how is full-time fatherhood treating you after all this time?" Richard thought for a moment. "Terrifying and extraordinary at the same time. I still make mistakes every day, but we're learning together." He paused, studying Emma's tired face. "And you? How are you handling everything?" "I'm fine. Busy, but fulfilling a dream I didn't even know I had." "And your personal life, family, friends, his boyfriend?" The last word came out hesitantly, almost too casual to be natural. Emma raised an eyebrow, surprised by the question. "I work so much my friends have practically forgotten my face," she said with a slight smile. "As for a boyfriend, I haven't had one in almost 2 years. My last relationship ended because I was too dedicated to work and emotionally unavailable." He clearly didn't recognize dedication and passion when he saw it. The comment hung between them, loaded with unspoken meaning. "And you?" Emma asked, shifting the focus. "Any special person besides Olivia?" "Not since Claire, Olivia's mother." Richard ran a hand through his hair, a gesture Emma had noticed he did when uncomfortable. "I buried myself so deep in work that relationships seemed unnecessary. I know exactly how that feels." The look they exchanged held a mutual recognition of souls who had prioritized greater purposes over their own personal happiness. The opening of the Emma Thompson Children's Rehabilitation Center was a grand event, drawing officials, celebrities, and most importantly, dozens of families with children who could benefit from its programs. Olivia, as the symbolic patient, cut the ribbon alongside her father and Emma, wearing a sky-blue dress and, to the astonishment of everyone who knew her story, supported by a special walker that allowed her to stand for short periods. During his speech, Richard surprised the audience with an unexpected announcement. This center was born not just from the determination of an extraordinary nurse or the resources of a businessman, but primarily from the courage of a girl who refused to accept limitations. My daughter, Olivia, he extended his hand to the girl who smiled shyly, has taught me more about strength in these past few months than I've learned in my entire career. That's why I'm delighted to announce the creation of the Olivia Parker Foundation, which will expand this treatment model to other cities in the United States, starting with 5 state capitals next year. The announcement sparked enthusiastic applause and a few emotional tears. Emma, completely caught off guard, looked at Richard with a silent question in her eyes. He simply smiled, indicating they'd talk later. The opening celebration lasted all afternoon with performances by children, demonstrations of innovative therapies, and guided tours of the state-of-the-art facility. By the end of the day, when most guests had left, Emma found Olivia sitting alone in her new office, thoughtfully, staring at the nameplate on the door. "What do you think?" Emma asked, sitting beside the girl. "Too extravagant for a simple nurse." Olivia smiled, her eyes shining with wisdom beyond her years. "You were never just a nurse, Aunt Emma. To me, you've always been magic." Emma felt her eyes well up. "Oh, Liv." "It's true," the girl insisted. "Before you, I had given up. I didn't want to do physical therapy anymore. Didn't want to try because it hurt too much and I never saw results." She moved her feet slightly, a feat that once seemed impossible. "Then you started dancing with me and made me feel like I could be happy even if I couldn't walk. And then I started feeling my legs again." Emma gently touched the girl's face. "The magic was always in you, Liv. I just helped you find it." "Aunt Emma?" Olivia hesitated, biting her lip. "Do you like my dad?" The question caught Emma completely off guard. "Of course I do. He's a good man who made mistakes but is trying to make up for them." "No, I mean, do you like him the way Mom did? Grandma Margaret showed me videos of them together, and Mom looked at him the same way you do sometimes." Emma felt her cheeks burn. "Olivia, your imagination is running wild. Your father and I are colleagues, partners in this project." The girl murmured, unconvinced. "Grandma said you're both too stubborn to see the obvious." "Your grandmother should mind her own business," Emma replied, trying to sound stern, but a smile tugged at her lips. "She also said you'd make a great stepmom." "Olivia Parker," Emma exclaimed, genuinely shocked. "This conversation is getting inappropriate." The girl laughed, a crystal-clear sound that echoed through the office. "I'm just saying what I think, and I think you two belong together." At that moment, Richard walked in carrying a small box. "There you are. I've been looking everywhere." "We were having a girls' talk, Dad," Olivia replied with an innocent smile that made Emma shiver slightly. "I see. Well, I brought something for you, Emma. A little opening gift." He handed her the box, which she opened curiously. Inside was a small golden brooch shaped like a ballerina. "It's beautiful, Richard." "Thank you." "Turn it over." On the back of the brooch was a delicate inscription. "The dance begins in the heart. E.T." "Those were your words from the first day I saw you dancing with Olivia," Richard explained. "I never forgot." Emma was speechless, moved by the memory. "See, Aunt Emma," Olivia whispered, loud enough for her father to hear. "I told you you belong together." Richard looked confused between them. "Did I miss something?" "Nothing important, Dad. Just giving some hints to adults who need help." Emma covered her face in embarrassment, while Richard remained clueless. Olivia just smiled, pleased with herself. With the center's routine established, the relationship between Richard and Emma evolved into a solid professional partnership marked by mutual respect and a growing friendship. The occasional hints from Olivia had become an inside joke they both pretended to ignore, though they created moments of subtly enjoyable awkwardness. One Friday afternoon, 3 months after the opening, Emma was absorbed in analyzing the first quarter's operational data when Richard walked into her office without knocking. "I need your help," he declared, looking both serious and nervous. Emma glanced up from her papers, alarmed. "Did something happen to Olivia?" "No, she's fine. Actually, it's about her birthday." "But her birthday was 4 months ago." "My birthday, I mean. It's next week, and Olivia is planning a little surprise that I'm almost certain includes trying to set us up romantically." Emma couldn't suppress a smile. "She's persistent, isn't she?" "Stubborn would be the word." Richard sat in the chair across from Emma's desk. "I overheard her and Mrs. Margaret whispering about decorations, slow music, and something about finally making them see." Emma laughed, picturing the scene. "So what's your plan? Flee the country?" "I thought of something more direct." Richard took a deep breath as if gathering courage. "Maybe we should have dinner together before the party." Emma stopped smiling, studying Richard's face with new attention. "Are you suggesting we preempt Olivia's attempt to set us up by going out together?" "Exactly." Richard adjusted his tie, a gesture Emma had noticed he did when nervous. "Dinner, just the two of us, to discuss the situation." "The situation," Emma repeated slowly. "Yes, you know. This thing between us that Olivia and apparently the entire hospital has noticed. And is there a thing between us?" Richard ran a hand through his hair, visibly uncomfortable. "Emma, I'm terrible at this. I haven't been on a date in over 10 years, but yes, I think there's something, at least on my part." His awkward honesty made him curiously more endearing. Emma felt a pleasant warmth spread through her chest. "On mine too," she finally admitted. "But it's complicated, Richard. We work together, there's Olivia, our history. That's exactly why we need to talk. Set boundaries, expectations, or at least clarify how we feel before a 10-year-old takes control of the situation." Emma couldn't help laughing. "Help. Put that way, I suppose we really do need to have dinner." The dinner was set for Wednesday at a discreet restaurant in Soho. Emma, who rarely worried about appearances, spent an unusual amount of time choosing what to wear. She finally settled on a simple yet elegant navy blue dress, one she usually reserved for special occasions. She purposely arrived a few minutes late, trying to control a nervousness she hadn't felt since her teenage years. Richard was already waiting, equally, formal in a dark suit without a tie, looking just as nervous as she was. "Do you look stunning?" he said, standing to pull out her chair. "Thank you, you look very nice too." The conversation began with formalities and safe discussions about the center and Olivia's progress. Only after the second glass of wine, when the initial nervousness had eased, did Richard address the real reason for their meeting. "Emma, I need to be honest with you." She nodded, waiting for him to continue. "I never thought I'd feel this way again after Claire, especially for someone so different from her." "Different how?" Emma asked, genuinely curious. "Claire was sweet, patient, accommodating. He hesitated, searching for the right words. "Intense, determined, challenging. You don't take no for an answer when you believe in something." "That's exactly the kind of person who would drive me crazy in a business negotiation." Emma laughed, surprised by the remark. "Is that a compliment or a criticism?" "Definitely a compliment." Richard smiled, more relaxed now. "You make me question truths I thought were absolute, like when you insisted Olivia could improve against all diagnoses, or when you fight the healthcare system's bureaucracy every day to ensure the best for your patients." Emma lowered her eyes, slightly embarrassed by the praise. "I just do what I believe is right." "Exactly, and that's what I deeply admire." Richard paused, gathering courage. "Emma, I think I'm falling in love with you." The direct statement caught her off guard. She had expected hints, casual flirting, maybe a discussion about exploring feelings, not such an open confession. "Richard, You don't have to answer now," he interrupted gently. I know it's complicated. There's Olivia, the center, our history. If you prefer to keep things strictly professional, I'll completely understand, and I promise it won't affect our work." Emma studied the man in front of her. The powerful, intimidating businessman she'd met months ago had given way to someone more human, vulnerable, capable of admitting feelings and fears. The transformation moved her deeply. "I have feelings for you too, Richard, but you're right, it's complicated, especially because of Olivia." "What does she have to do with it?" "She's practically planning our wedding," he joked, trying to ease the tension. "Exactly because of that," Emma leaned in slightly. "What if things don't work out between us? She's already lost her mother, been abandoned by her father, and now she finally has a family again. If we start something and it ends badly, how would that affect her?" Richard nodded, understanding her concern. "You're absolutely right. We can't risk her emotional stability. On the other hand," Emma continued, surprising him, "we also can't live our lives based only on fear. And maybe we should take it slow. Get to know each other better outside of work without involving Olivia at first." Richard's face lit up with a hopeful smile. "Are you suggesting we try, discreetly?" "I'm suggesting we explore this possibility carefully, one step at a time." The rest of dinner passed in a lighter atmosphere, the initial tension replaced by genuine conversations about their pasts, dreams, and fears. By the end of the night, when Richard walked her to her car, there was a new understanding between them. "Can I call you tomorrow?" he asked, gently holding her hand. "I think that would be nice," Emma replied with a smile. He leaned in slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted. When their lips met, the kiss was gentle, hesitant, full of unspoken promises. In the weeks that followed, they kept their word to proceed cautiously. They met discreetly for dinners, walks in the park, and long conversations that often stretched into the early hours. At the center and around Olivia, they maintained a strictly professional relationship, though the observant girl often commented on the weird looks they exchanged. One particularly busy afternoon at the center, Emma was coordinating a special session with newly admitted children when her assistant Chloe rushed into the room. "Emma, there's a woman at reception insisting on speaking with you. She says it's urgent." "Who is it?" "Dr. Caroline Mitchell from Washington Children's Hospital. She seems very agitated." Emma frowned. The name wasn't familiar. "Ask Nathan to take over the session and bring her to my office. I'll be there in 5 minutes." When she entered her office, she found a distinguished-looking middle-aged woman who stood up immediately. "Nurse Thompson, finally." "I'm Caroline Mitchell, Director of Special Programs at Washington Children's Hospital. How can I help you, Dr. Mitchell?" "I came personally to invite you to implement your dance therapy program at our institution. We've closely followed the impressive results you've achieved here, and our board has approved a substantial budget to replicate your model." The proposal caught Emma completely off guard. "That's very flattering, but we've built a structure here that took months to establish. We understand, and we don't expect immediate miracles. We'd like you to spend 3 months in Washington, training our team and helping set up the program. The hospital is offering a generous compensation package, including lodging and transportation." 3 months, murmured Emma, immediately thinking of Olivia and the center that had barely completed its first 6 months of operation, and, inevitably, of Richard. "I know it's a significant commitment, but this is an opportunity to expand your method to hundreds of children who desperately need it." "I truly appreciate the invitation, Dr. Mitchell, but I'd need to consult my team here. We have patients in ongoing treatment. Of course, I don't expect an immediate answer." The doctor handed her an envelope. "Here's the formal proposal with all the details. I'll be in town until Friday and would love to discuss it further before I leave." After the visitor left, Emma remained in her office, the unopened envelope in her hands, conflicting emotions swirling in her mind. The opportunity to expand the program was extraordinary, but the thought of leaving the center, Olivia and Richard, for 3 months filled her with unexpected anguish. That evening, during their regular Tuesday dinner, Emma shared the news with Richard. "Washington for 3 months." Surprise was evident in his voice. It's a huge opportunity, Richard. It means our work is being recognized nationally. Of course, it's wonderful. He took a deep breath, steadying his initial reaction. Are you considering accepting? Emma pushed her food around absently. Honestly, I'm torn. On one hand, this is exactly what we hope to achieve with the Olivia Parker Foundation, expanding the model to other cities. On the other hand, there's you, Olivia, the center we just established. 3 months is a long time. Richard covered her hand with his. Emma, if this is an opportunity you truly want, I'll support you completely. The center has a solid team you trained yourself, and as for us, well, 3 months will fly by. His eyes met hers, conveying more than his words. And Olivia, how do you think she'd react? She'd be devastated at first, but she'd eventually understand you're helping other kids like her. He smiled sadly. Besides, there's FaceTime. You could talk every day. Emma squeezed his hand. I haven't decided yet, Richard. I need to think carefully. But thank you for understanding. That night, alone in her apartment, Emma finally opened the envelope. The proposal was even more impressive than she expected. Beyond the program at Washington Children's Hospital, there was potential for training professionals across the Mid-Atlantic, exponentially increasing its impact. On the phone, she shared her doubts with her best friend, Lauren. This is the opportunity of your professional life, Emma, Lauren exclaimed. How many nurses get to create a groundbreaking therapeutic method and expand it nationally? I know, but the handsome millionaire and his daughter complicate everything, don't they? Emma sighed. It's not just that. I feel responsible for the center here too. It was built for me around my methodology. Emma Lynn Thompson, you've always been brilliant, but incredibly stubborn. The center won't collapse if you're away for 3 months, and if this relationship with Richard is real, it will survive the distance. Over the next few nights, Emma carefully weighed her options. By Friday, Dr. Mitchell's last day in town, she still hadn't reached a clear decision. That's when Richard unexpectedly appeared in her office at the end of the workday. We need to talk, he said, closing the door behind him. About what? About Washington. He seemed nervous, unusual for a man usually so composed. I spoke with Olivia last night, about you, about us. Emma felt her heart race. What did you tell her? The truth. That we care deeply for each other and are exploring a relationship. And how did she react? A smile lit up Richard's face. She said, and I quote, "Finally, you adults figured out the obvious. Took you only about 6 months." Emma couldn't help but laugh, perfectly imagining Olivia's smug expression. That girl. There's more. Richard sat down, holding Emma's hands in his. We also talked about the Washington proposal. You told her? I thought she should know, and surprisingly, she had an idea that hadn't occurred to me. Emma waited, curious. What if we came with you? What do you mean? Olivia, me to Washington, for 3 months. She could continue her studies online. I can work remotely most of the time, and we'd come back to New York City regularly to handle business and her treatment. Emma was momentarily speechless. Richard, this is... You'd uproot your lives for 3 months for me. For us. He gently squeezed her hands. Emma, I never believed in love at first sight or whirlwind romances. What I feel for you grew slowly, based on admiration, respect, and eventually something deeper. I won't let 3 months apart risk that. Tears welled in Emma's eyes. And Olivia, she truly agreed to this. Her exact words, Daddy, you left me once. Don't let Aunt Emma go too. He chuckled softly. Subtle as ever, my daughter. Emma discreetly wiped an escaped tear. You two are impossible, you know that. We're persistent, a quality you admire, if I recall. Emma stood, walking to the window to collect her thoughts. This is a huge decision, Richard. I don't want you and Olivia turning your lives upside down for me. He approached, stopping beside her. Actually, we're just continuing what we started months ago. Rebuilding. Our lives around what truly matters. Before it was just Olivia. Now it includes you too. She turned to face him, studying the sincerity in his eyes. Are you sure? In response, Richard gently pulled her into a kiss, more confident and passionate than before. When they parted, both were smiling. "Does that answer your question?" he murmured. "Almost. But I think we need to consult the real head of the household." That evening, the three dined together at Richard's apartment, officially as a family meeting to discuss the Washington possibility. Olivia, radiant at seeing Emma and her father, openly together for the first time, didn't hide her satisfaction. "So you finally admitted you like each other," she declared, as if stating the obvious. "I was getting tired of pretending not to notice." Emma laughed, exchanging an affectionate glance with Richard. "Olivia, your father told me about your idea of coming to Washington with me. I need to know if this is really what you want or if you're just trying to keep us together." The girl considered the question with surprising seriousness for her age. "I want you together, of course. But I also want other kids to be able to dance like you taught me, Aunt Emma." She wiggled her feet under the table, a feat that still filled her with pride. "If that means going to Washington for a while, that's okay. We can make an adventure out of it, right, Dad?" Richard smiled at his daughter, proud of her maturity. "We certainly can. Besides," Olivia continued, "Grandma Margaret said she'll visit us there and she's never been to Washington before." Emma raised an eyebrow at Richard. "Margaret already knows about the plan?" Apparently, Olivia had already discussed everything with her before even talking to me, he replied, rolling his eyes good-naturedly. "Grandma said you two need adult supervision," Olivia added with a mischievous smile. Emma couldn't hold back a laugh. "Your grandmother is a very wise woman, Liv." That evening, Emma called Dr. Caroline Mitchell, formally accepting the proposal. When she mentioned she'd be accompanied by family, the word came out naturally, without hesitation. Hanging up, she found Richard watching her with a tender smile. "Family," he repeated. "I like how that sounds." "Me too," Emma replied softly. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of preparations. At the center, Emma trained the team intensively to take over during her absence, with Nathan designated as interim coordinator. Richard rearranged his work schedule to maximize his time in Washington, assigning trusted managers to handle daily operations at his companies in New York City. Olivia, perhaps the most excited of the three, tirelessly researched the capital, making lists of places she wanted to visit and local foods they had to try. The night before their departure, Emma made one last visit to the center after hours, wanting a private farewell with the place that had transformed her professional life. Walking through the quiet halls, she remembered the intense months since, the day she danced spontaneously with Olivia, unaware she was being watched by the girl's father. In her office, she found a surprise on the desk, a small blue box with a note from Richard. Inside was a delicate silver pendant shaped like two intertwined hands. The note simply read, "To take a piece of us with you. Tomorrow begins our new dance R&B." That night, Emma fell asleep with the pendant between her fingers and her heart full of quiet certainty. No matter the distance, her story with Richard and Olivia was just beginning. Weeks after arriving in Washington, the dance therapy program at Washington Children's Hospital was already showing promising results. Emma's mornings were dedicated to training the local team, while afternoons involved hands-on sessions, with the first children selected for the pilot program. Olivia, settling into the routine, often joined Emma in the afternoon sessions, becoming a sort of junior ambassador for the method. Watching the girl demonstrate to other wheelchair-bound children how to move their torsos and arms to the rhythm of the music, sharing her own recovery journey, filled Emma with pride that often brought tears to her eyes. Richard split his time between teleconferences in his makeshift home office and visits to the clinic to track progress. Within months, the family dynamic they'd begun building in New York City solidified in their new home, far from established pressures and routines. One particularly quiet evening, after Olivia had fallen asleep following an exhausting day at the hospital, Emma and Richard sat on the apartment balcony, sharing a bottle of wine and watching the lights of the planned city. "You know what Olivia asked me today?" Richard remarked, studying the reflection of the lights in his wine glass. "What?" "When we go back to New York City, will you live with us, or will we keep dating like teenagers?" Emma choked on her wine. caught between surprise and laughter. Those were her exact words? Word for word. Apparently, being almost 11 qualifies her as an expert on adult relationships. Emma shook her head, still smiling. "And what did you say?" Richard set his glass down and turned to face her with a serious expression. "I said it depended on you. That some people need time to be sure of what they want." Something in the intensity of his gaze made Emma realize there was more to this conversation than a simple retelling. "Richard, what are you really asking?" He took a deep breath, cradling her hands in his. "Emma, these months in Washington have shown me clearly what I suspected back in New York. I don't want to live without you anymore. I don't want Olivia to lose the person who brought light back into her life. I don't want to wake up in a home where you aren't." He paused, searching for the right words. "I'm not asking for marriage, not yet. I know we need time, but I'd like to know if when we return you'd consider living with us, being a real family." Emma felt her heart race. Over the past months, her life had completely transformed. From a dedicated, lonely nurse focused solely on her work, she'd become part of something bigger, a family in the making, a revolutionary therapeutic method, a love story that defied the odds. "I'm afraid, Richard," she admitted finally. "Not of living with you or loving you. I'm afraid of how easy it would be to lose all this." "What do you mean?" "My life has always been marked by loss. I lost my brother when I needed him most. I lost colleagues to the bureaucratic healthcare system. In a way, I almost lost Olivia when I was suspended." She took a deep breath. "Loving deeply means risking painful loss." Richard held her hands tighter. "I understand that fear better than you might think. It's the same one that made me run from Olivia for 5 years." His eyes met hers, intense and sincere. "But I've realized, thanks to you, that the risk of loss is nothing compared to the emptiness of never trying. What we have, Emma, is too rare to sacrifice to fear." A single tear rolled down Emma's cheek. "When you put it that way," she smiled through her tears. "Yes, Richard. When we go back to New York, I want to live with you. I want to be part of this family we're building." Richard pulled her into a tight hug, as if afraid she'd change her mind if he let go. When he finally drew back, there was a brightness in his eyes Emma had never seen before. "I think we have an almost 11-year-old who's going to be extremely pleased with herself when she hears this," he remarked, drawing a laugh from Emma. "She'll be unbearably smug," Emma agreed. "We'll have to endure her I told you so's for months." The next morning, Olivia studied their faces intently over breakfast, noting the shared smiles and lingering glances. With her characteristic perceptiveness, it didn't take long for her to realize something had changed. "You decided, didn't you?" she asked abruptly, cutting off their conversation about the day's schedule. "Decided what, Liv?" Emma replied, trying to keep her expression neutral. "About living together when we go back to New York." She looked between them. "I'm right, aren't I?" Richard and Emma exchanged a surrendering glance. "We're considering that possibility," Richard answered diplomatically. Olivia rolled her eyes with the eloquence only a preteen could muster. "That means yes, finally." She dropped her fork and impulsively hugged Emma. "Now it'll be official. You'll really be part of our family." Emma felt her heart tighten with the girl's genuine joy. "I've always been part of the family, Liv, even when I was just your nurse." "But now it'll be different," insisted Olivia. "I'll get to see you every day, not just at the hospital. And when I have trouble with my stubborn dad, I'll have you to defend me." "Hey," protested Richard, feigning offense. "Don't turn her against me so quickly." The laughter that followed sealed the moment, marking the beginning of a new chapter for the three of them. In the final weeks in Washington, as the dance therapy program solidified and the local team grew more independent, Emma experienced an inner peace she had never known before. The duality she had always felt between her professional and personal life began to harmonize, and for the first time she saw a future where both could coexist without mutual sacrifice. A week before their scheduled return to New York City, Emma received an unexpected offer from Dr. Caroline Mitchell to extend her stay by 3 months and expand the program to 2 more hospitals in nearby cities. The opportunity was professionally tempting, but Emma didn't need much time to decide. "I deeply appreciate your trust, Caroline," But my answer is no, she said during lunch as they discussed the program's future. The work here is practically complete. The team is trained, the protocols are set. It's time to trust that you'll carry on without my constant supervision. The doctor seemed genuinely disappointed. I understand your decision, but I can't help regretting it. Your presence made an extraordinary difference, Emma. I'll still be available for remote consultations, and we can arrange periodic workshops. But I have commitments in New York City I can't postpone. Emma smiled, thinking of Richard and Olivia. Important personal commitments. Dr. Caroline nodded in understanding. That lovely girl and her father, I imagine. I've noticed how harmoniously the three of you function as a unit. It's rare to see that, especially under such complex circumstances. Thank you for understanding. Before we close this subject, I have another proposal for you. Caroline adjusted her glasses, adopting a more formal tone. The Department of Health has expressed interest in your program. They'd like you to lead the creation of a national protocol for implementing dance therapy in pediatric rehabilitation centers. Emma blinked, genuinely surprised. A national protocol? Exactly. It wouldn't require your permanent presence, just periodic supervision and training for the core teams. We could arrange a schedule that allows you to maintain your responsibilities. In New York City. This is extraordinary, Caroline. I need to talk to Richard and see how it would affect our plans. Of course. But consider this, Emma. Your method could help thousands of children across the country. That night, after Olivia had fallen asleep, Emma shared the proposal with Richard, who listened attentively without interrupting. What do you think? She finally asked, apprehensive. I think it's an incredible opportunity that you absolutely deserve, he replied without hesitation. And we should find a way to make it work with our life in New York City. Really? No objections? It would mean frequent travel, periods away. Richard smiled, taking her hands. Emma, I love you exactly for who you are. A passionate, dedicated professional who transformed my daughter's life and can now do the same for thousands of other children. I'd never ask you to sacrifice that. And Olivia? She'll be tremendously proud. She'll probably want to join you on some trips, taking on the role of junior consultant. He chuckled softly. It might be a logistical challenge, but we'll find solutions. That's what families do. Emma felt a wave of gratitude and love so intense that she was momentarily speechless. Finally, she managed to say, "When we dance together, we find the right rhythm, don't we?" Exactly, Richard agreed, pulling her into his arms. And this is just the beginning of our dance. The return to New York City was marked by a warm welcome at the rehabilitation center. The team had prepared a small celebration to greet Emma, complete with a special cake decorated with tiny ballerinas in wheelchairs. The quarterly results have exceeded all expectations, Nathan reported enthusiastically, showing the progress charts. Your methodology is being cited in international medical publications, Emma. We're getting inquiries from hospitals across the United States and even abroad. Emma took in the news with a mix of pride and humility. This is all of your doing. You kept everything running perfectly in my absence. We just followed the path you paved, Nathan replied. Speaking of which, there's a special surprise waiting for you. He led her to the auditorium where Emma was greeted by her young patients, all lined up for a special performance. At the center of the group, as the natural leader, stood Lily, an 8-year-old girl who had joined the program shortly after its launch with leg paralysis following meningitis. Aunt Emma, Lily exclaimed, beaming, we prepared a dance for you. The music began and the group of children, some in wheelchairs, others with walkers, some with leg braces, started a synchronized routine they had clearly rehearsed tirelessly. Their movements, though limited by their various conditions, were graceful and expressive, radiating joy and freedom. Emma felt tears streaming freely as she watched the performance. Richard, beside her, squeezed her hand in silent understanding. Olivia, on the other side, observed the children with an approving expression and even a hint of pride, as if to say, "Look at what I helped create." When the performance ended, amid enthusiastic applause, Lily wheeled herself forward and handed Emma a small handmade book. "It's our dance diary, Aunt Emma. We wrote and drew how we feel when we dance, so you'll never forget why you do this." Emma flipped through the book with trembling hands, seeing colorful drawings and simple yet deeply touching phrases. "When I dance, I forget I can't walk. The music makes my legs tingle even if they don't move. Dancing makes me feel normal. I'm a ballerina even if I can't stand." "This is the most precious gift I've ever received," Emma murmured, hugging Lily and then each child in the group. In the months that followed, life settled into a new rhythm. Emma divided her time between the rehabilitation center in New York City, periodic trips to oversee the national program's implementation, and her new domestic life with Richard and Olivia in the spacious home they now shared. Olivia continued to make remarkable progress. Though doctors still considered it unlikely she would walk unaided, she could now stand for increasingly long periods and take small steps with a walker. More importantly, however, was her emotional growth. From a withdrawn, depressed girl, she had transformed into a confident, determined preteen with ambitious plans for the future. "I want to be a doctor like Dr. Michael, but I also want to be a dancer like you taught me," she declared one evening at dinner. "Do you think that's possible?" "I think you can be absolutely anything you set your mind to," Emma replied. "And maybe you can be both, combining medicine and dance in ways we haven't even imagined yet." On a sunny Sunday, 1 year after returning from Washington, Emma, Richard, and Olivia were visiting Central Park, enjoying a rare day with no commitments. Olivia, who could now walk short distances with crutches, carefully practiced her steps on the paved path, with her father attentively by her side. Emma watched the scene from a few feet away, her heart overflowing with happiness at seeing the restored bond between father and daughter. Richard, noticing her gaze, turned with a smile that still made her heart skip a beat. "Everything all right?" he asked, walking over as Olivia rested on a nearby bench. "Better than I ever imagined possible," Emma replied sincerely. "Sometimes I still wonder how we got here, in every possible way." Richard smiled, pulling something from his pocket. "Speaking of possible ways," he opened his hand, revealing a small velvet box. "I think it's time we answer the question Liv's been asking us for months." Emma's heart raced as Richard opened the box, revealing a delicate ring with a small blue stone. "It's not a traditional diamond," he explained, anticipating the question in her eyes. "It's a sapphire, the same color as the dress you wore when you danced with Liv for the first time, the color that changed our lives." "It's perfect," Emma whispered, moved. Richard knelt, holding her hand. "Emma Thompson, you taught me to face my deepest fears, to rebuild my family, and to believe in possibilities doctors said were impossible. You brought music into our lives when the silence was deafening." His voice trembled slightly. "Would you make official what we've known for so long and marry me?" "Yes," Olivia shouted from the bench before Emma could even respond. "She says yes, we both do." Emma and Richard laughed, looking at the girl watching them with eyes sparkling with joy. "What she said," Emma confirmed, extending her hand for Richard to slide the ring on. "Yes, I will, with all my heart." Richard stood, kissing her gently, as Olivia clapped enthusiastically. When they pulled apart, the girl had already made her way over with her crutches, demanding to be included in the hug. "Now we're officially a family," she declared with satisfaction. "A family that started with a dance." Emma hugged them both, feeling whole in a way she'd never imagined possible. "The most important dance of our lives," she agreed, thinking of how a simple act of compassion had sparked such profound change for all of them. Months later, in an intimate garden ceremony at the rehabilitation center, surrounded by colleagues, patients and dear friends, Emma and Richard made their union official. Olivia, radiant in a sky blue dress, led the procession to the altar, not in her wheelchair, but walking slowly with her flower-decorated crutches, each step a victory symbolizing the extraordinary journey they'd shared. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the small orchestra of children from the music therapy program began to play, and Emma, true to the tradition she'd started, pulled Richard into an impromptu dance right there under the open sky, while Olivia watched with the brightest smile in the world. "See, Dad?" she said when the newlyweds approached after their first dance. "I always knew she was the one for us." Richard hugged his daughter, lifting her slightly so she could be at their height. "Yes, Liv, you knew before any of us. Thank you for never giving up on me, on us." "You're welcome," she replied mischievously. "Now when are we going to start talking about a little brother?" Emma choked on her champagne while Richard laughed heartily. "One thing at a time, young lady, one thing at a time." As the celebration continued around them, Emma looked at her new official family and the center they had built together. The journey had been unexpected, filled with challenges and moments of doubt, but every step, every decision had led them exactly where they were meant to be. Like the dance that had brought their lives together, they had learned to follow the rhythm of their hearts, even when the steps seemed impossible. And they would keep dancing together, to the music only they could hear, creating their own choreography of love, resilience, and hope. The end. Every dance has its own rhythm, just like our journey through life. If this story touched your heart, help us keep sharing emotions. Leave your like, comment on your favorite part, and subscribe for new tales of triumph.